This is Russell Dobler sitting in for Jimmy Dore, who will be in Denver on May 11th. Go to jimmydore.com for tickets. Okay, we're gonna take a look at a possible successor to Benjamin Netanyahu right here.
Yeah, come on.
Sanders hits back at Netanyahu.
They are Amalek. They are Amalek.
They are
The Bible. To read
they
the
are
Bible.
Amalek, but they are our cousins.
How about what's with the licking?
Okay, so I'm sure you saw this, but for viewers who haven't seen it, Netanyahu, if any other foreign leader demanded that American college students' speech be suppressed, oh my God, we'd be up in arms. But we have Netanyahu demand that speech be suppressed in the United States, and it goes largely unremarked.
What's happening on America's college campuses is horrific. Anti-Semitic mobs have taken over leading universities. They call for the annihilation of Israel. They attack Jewish students. They attack Jewish faculty. This is reminiscent of what happened in German universities in the 1930s. It's unconscionable.
Oh my
It has to be stopped. It has to be condemned, and condemned unequivocally. But that's not what happened. The response of several university presidents was shameful. Now, fortunately, state, local, federal officials, many of them have responded differently, but there has to be more. More has to be done. It has to be done not only because they attack Israel, that's bad enough. Not only because they want to kill Jews wherever they are, that's bad enough. It's also, when you listen to them, it's also because they say not only death to Israel, death to the Jews, but death to America.
And as we have seen, it's only the Zionists who scream death to Israel and death to Jews. We don't actually see legitimate protesters screaming these things.
I heard go back to Poland on the other one.
That has terrible consequences. We see this exponential rise of anti-Semitism throughout America and throughout Western societies as Israel tries to defend itself against genocidal terrorists. Genocidal terrorists who hide behind civilians. Yet it is Israel that is falsely accused of genocide. Israel that is falsely accused of starvation and all sundry war crimes. It's all one big libel. But that's not new. We've seen in history that anti-Semitic attacks were always preceded by vilification and slander. Lies that were cast against the Jewish people that are unbelievable, yet people believed them. And what is important now is for all of us who are interested and cherish our values and our civilization, to stand up together and to say enough is enough. We have to stop anti-Semitism because anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine. It always precedes larger conflagrations that engulf the entire world. So I ask all of you, Jews and non-Jews alike, who are concerned with our common future and our common values, to do one thing. Stand up, speak up, be counted. Stop anti-Semitism now.
Yeah.
Shut up and take my money.
So Bernie, who looks here like he just got hit with a shovel, went and responded to Netanyahu's speech. And I think we could safely categorize this. We'll get into it in the same category you would put AOC and Ilhan Omar going to Colombia. It's a big sheepdog move, which is pretty much what they use him for these days.
No, Mr. Netanyahu, it is not anti-Semitic or pro-Hamas to point out that in a little over 6 months, your extremist government has killed 34,000 Palestinians and wounded more than 78,000, 70% of whom are women and children. It is not anti-Semitic to point out that your bombing has completely destroyed more than 221,000 housing units in Gaza, leaving more than 1 million people homeless, almost half the population. It is not anti-Semitic to note that your government has obliterated Gaza's civilian infrastructure, electricity, water, and sewage. It is not anti-Semitic to realize that your government has annihilated Gaza's healthcare system, knocking 26 hospitals out of service and killing more than 400 healthcare workers. It is not anti-Semitic to condemn your government's destruction of all of Gaza's 12 universities and 56 of its schools, with hundreds more damaged, leaving 625,000 students with no educational opportunities. It is not anti-Semitic to agree with virtually every humanitarian organization in saying that your government, in violation of American law, has unreasonably blocked humanitarian aid coming into Gaza, creating the conditions in which so many thousands of children face malnutrition and famine. Mr. Netanyahu, anti-Semitism is a vile and disgusting form of bigotry that has done unspeakable harm to many millions of people. But please, do not insult the intelligence of the American people by attempting to distract us from the immoral and illegal war policies of your extremist and racist government. Do not use anti-Semitism to deflect attention from the criminal indictment you are facing in the Israeli courts. It is not anti-Semitic to hold you accountable for your actions.
Okay, so and then he went on. He's not using the G word, I don't think, but he did go on and profile and courage that he is accuse Netanyahu of ethnic cleansing. He was prepared to go that far. Now, honestly, you know, a lot of us, I don't know about you, Max, you're probably sharper by 2016 than we were. But we were definitely Bernie bros back in those days. It was weird working on this segment because he's become so irrelevant. I haven't seen Sanders talk at that length in years. I literally don't think I've watched a clip of him talking for that long in years. Like he's noticeably aged since the last time I actually watched a clip of Bernie Sanders. What is he doing? Is this just what he's always done? Just representing people in the Democratic Party who feel that way so that they can feel that they're at home? Because I've seen interviews he gave off of this speech where they asked him, well, so what do you think about Joe Biden? Well, I think the American people, when they go to the polls, they'll realize Joe Biden is the first president in history to walk on a picket line. Sure, he broke a railroad strike, but he walked. He walked. He has walking shoes. And so, you know, no disavowal of Biden. Is that the purpose? What is he doing here?
Well, I also was supportive of Bernie in 2016, and it was a much different run than his 2020 run. But I protested him to his face as well during a talk he gave in New York at the early stages of his campaign with Chris Hedges, I think Naomi Klein, and someone else was there, and it was supposed to be about the climate. Mm-hmm. But a banner was unfurled accusing Bernie of supporting genocide in Gaza or ethnic cleansing, something right in front of him. And I tried to, you know, challenge him after his talk and ask him for a comment about that, because what had taken place was this was 2015. So we were in the shadow of, at the time, Israel's most severe assault on the Gaza Strip in 2014. And during that period, Bernie was challenged at a town hall by his constituents over his support for Israel. And he denounced them as Hamas supporters, gave a fervent defense of Israel. And he, in 2016, his run was really necessary just to make sure Hillary Clinton wasn't running unchallenged. And, you know, it was also in the shadow of Occupy Wall Street. What happened was he realized that his constituents did not support Israel, that Netanyahu was a nut job, and that maybe he might be able to issue some criticism and differentiate himself from Hillary Clinton. And he wound up actually taking Hillary on in a debate and declaring Netanyahu's not always right, Israel isn't always right, and making her look like the warmonger she was. He could have done that also on Libya if he hadn't voted for that. He could have totally discredited her. But he, of course, didn't go far enough. Now we're seeing Bernie go even further than he did in 2016 after making some truly pathetic statements after October 7th, yes, denouncing calls for a ceasefire, refusing to call it a genocide, and so on. And what this is just a reflection of whatever is left of the progressive forces within the Democratic Party base, and Bernie being given the space to appeal to them, or at least, trying to cultivate their support. So this isn't really just about Bernie. It's about someone who's always been kind of to the left of on the left edge of conventional opinion within the Democratic Party, saying things that would have been unheard of from any Jewish senator like 10, 20 years ago. So I think there's a lot more space to be occupied by a national politician, but there is no politician right now. There is no figure. The closest thing we have is Jill Stein. She's on the ballot in more than 40 states, and she, supports the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, and is full-throated in her opposition to genocide. Was just arrested, I think, at the University of Minnesota. I can't remember where she was arrested.
I think it was Missouri. I think it was somewhere
Missouri.
in St. Louis. Yeah. Now she's charged with assaulting an officer too.
Is she?
Yep. So she's
in jail with Trump. We can have a race where every candidate's in jail. That'd be great. That'd be a great campaign season.
Maybe she should call Peter Dow. I bet he's got some connections. He could probably help get her out.
Well, anyway, you just don't. You don't have any.
She could deny that she knows him, and then she could say she does know him, and then she could pretend that she didn't recommend him, and then she could say he did, and then whatever, all the fucking bullshit she does all the time, which is why the Green Party hasn't grown, because she's fucking completely controlled, and the Green Party's infiltrated. Anyway, back to you.
Good to hear from you, Jimmy.
What's that?
It's good to hear from you.
Okay, it's a Jimmy Dore from the Jimmy Dore Show.
Well, Max, let me ask you, since friend of show Jimmy Dore brought this up, because we've talked about this quite a bit. I don't believe that there are no effectual people on the left, which makes me wonder: do they empower ineffectual groups like the Greens? Very much like they let Bernie Sanders talk his shit, as long as it's not going to go anywhere. Is it basically another way of corralling people? Is that just a safety valve? Okay, if you're that frustrated, you can vote Green, because it's strange to me that no people who are competent are ever setting up a third party.
They wouldn't be allowed to.
The problem with Bernie's statement is it's focused on Netanyahu, and they're creating this personality dispute between Biden and Netanyahu. Right. So ultimately, he's sheepdogging.
Right.
They're setting up a conflict between Netanyahu, who's a proxy for Trump, and Biden. And that's something that, Democrats are willing to go along with. And Netanyahu's just so odious and so cynical in his exploitation of anti-Semitism that, how can you disagree? But what a generation that's been pretty much abandoned, left voiceless, that gets their news from social media. Who do they trust? They trust people on social media. They trust people like themselves. They trust comedians. There's no comedian running right now, but they don't trust politicians.
Well, Jimmy, I think you had something to announce today, no?
Not today.
Not today? All right.
What? There's an announcement?
No.
No. We like Jimmy too much to ever suggest he do something like that.
He's a good friend of the show.
He's a very we need him.
Keep him around if we can't get any good guests.
Yeah, he's a great guest. The chat loves him.
Hey, come see us do a live show. We're going to be in Denver, Colorado, May 11th. Los Angeles, California, doing a live panel show with a celebrity panel and video. Ashland, Virginia, Athens, Georgia, Rutherford, New Jersey, with Max Blumenthal. Minneapolis, Minnesota, Ontario, California, Irvine, California, Chicago, Illinois, with another celebrity panel, live video show in Chicago, and Grand Rapids, Michigan. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.